Hey, what's up guys? capnbozzy here, and this is Mass Effect 3 Multiplayer and Salmon Academy Part 16. And in this episode, we'll be covering the Human Adept, who is one of the best pure biotic kits in the game. So let's check out her powers. So of course, just like other Adepts, the Human Adept is all about detonating biotic explosions. So as you can see, the Human Adept has Singularity, Warp, and Shockwave as her powers. So let's check out Singularity here. So if we look at rank 4, we have both radius as well as duration. In my opinion, you want to go with radius. For this particular case, I would say that that's actually usually the way you want to go whenever you have the option of expanding your radius for a power, especially something with Singularity where, it's all about being able to, cast Singularity out into the field to be able to get, mobs of enemies to be able to get sucked up into the Singularity. You definitely want it to be as large as possible so that, enemies as they're coming in, they can be sucked in by all sides, and you can just do as much damage as possible, pure Singularity that you throw out there. So for the most part, you can already see that the duration is 8 seconds. That's plenty of time to have a Singularity, because once you get it in there, most likely, you're going to be doing a biotic detonation right as soon as you get the enemy in the Singularity. So, especially if you're playing with a biotic team and you have any other biotics who are going to be able to detonate enemies, things are going to just get killed really quickly, get detonated really quickly. So, you definitely want to go with radius. For rank 5, we got lift damage and recharge speed. The way that I have this kit spec'd, it's plus 200 with the weapon weight, so you absolutely do not need to put anything else into recharge speed with your powers. It's already going to be really quick. This is only 2.46 seconds already with the recharge speed, so there is absolutely no need for any more speccing into recharge speed for any of your powers. And you'll see that once we get into the game, I'm just going to be throwing out biotic powers, just left and right very quickly, quick cooldowns. So that's really the key here. Okay, so you definitely don't need recharge speed. So with lift damage, of course, you're just going to be doing, 67.5 more damage per second to the lifted targets. And then lastly here, for rank 6, we have damage versus detonate. And this is kind of an interesting one. I personally have not used this detonate one before. I've seen some other people use it. I think you could really go either way. I just really go with damage over detonate, simply because it's kind of, I don't know, it's not easy to tell exactly how much 675 damage is really going to do, if that's really worth it over doing this increased damage. And also, since you're really going to be killing the enemies so quickly, the truth is, the enemies are probably going to be dead or outside of the Singularity because you detonated them before the Singularity has time to detonate anyway. Because keep in mind, the duration of the Singularity is going to be 8 seconds. So, that's 8 seconds counting down as soon as you get an enemy in that Singularity, and then it would detonate. So, most likely, like I've said, you're going to hit an enemy with the Singularity. He's going to be floating in there, and then you're going to hit him again, with another power in order to detonate that. And that's going to, happen way before this reaches this 8-second mark and detonates. So, in my opinion, that's why this is really not the way to go. But if you want to try it out and you find that it really does, work pretty well and the damage is worth it, then go either way. Then you can go with detonate. But this is just my choice. All right, and then for warp. Okay, so of course the main combo you're going to be doing is, Singularity on mobs of enemies, and then you're going to be throwing warp to detonate it. Of course, you can also use warp as the primer, and then shockwave as the detonator, as well as Singularity as the primer, and then shockwave as the detonator. So what's really great about shockwave is that you're able to throw it through walls. So that's something that Once I get into the game, I'll show you this. Of course, you can, set Singularity out in the field, and it will, catch the enemies. And then even if you're behind a wall, you can still detonate that biotic explosion with Singularity. You can't do that with Warp. Warp cannot go through walls, but Warp is absolutely, the way to go usually, because it's just so powerful, and it also has a much greater range and better accuracy than Shockwave. So with rank 4 here, we have both damage and detonate. You could really go either way, but I personally prefer detonate simply because, this kit is going to be all about doing these detonations. So I absolutely want to have, some greater force so that the enemies, really go flying when they get detonated, and, and has greater impact radius and all of that. So I want these detonations to be as big and as powerful as possible. So that's why I'm going with this. Really versus just doing, damage, because I guess if you're going to use damage, that would really be if you were not going to be speccing this kit to be about doing biotic explosions, and you really just wanted to use Warp as, kind of just a single projectile power just to do damage on enemies. So, even if you were speccing this kit to be a biotic explosion kit, then, you could still use damage. However, I suggest going with detonate. Alright, so then for rank 5 here, we have lasting damage versus expose. This is also another one that you could really go either way. I prefer going with lasting damage simply because it's easier to quantify, exactly how this is going to really affect, doing damage in the games, versus expose, 15% weapon damage. I mean, that's really not that much, and who knows how much that really is going to matter, and especially because this is going to increase the power damage taken only for 10 seconds. Once again, I mentioned in the previous video that anything that has to do with a kind of second duration, whether it's 30 seconds, 10 seconds, like a bonus, I usually don't pick those simply because when you're playing, you're not going to be paying attention to that, and it's usually not that useful in my opinion, versus going with something that is a lot more easily noticeable. 40% damage, that's really easy to tell how that's going to make a difference. Obviously, you're going to be doing more damage, and it's going to be lasting for a longer time, sucking away enemies. So, if we look here, Warp, of course, stops target enemies from regenerating health, and that's also really great with having that extra duration, and it weakens armor as well. So Warp is a power that stays on enemies, and it kind of drains them as it stays on them. So that's definitely a plus for duration with this. Alright, so lastly here with rank 6, we have Pierce versus Recharge Speed. Once again, this is a no-brainer because we're not going to need the extra recharge speed. I'm already going to be at plus 200 for the weight. So with Pierce, of course, we have increased damage to barriers and armor, and that's absolutely what we want. We're going to be using this on all types of enemies, whether it's just mooks or mid enemies, or sorry, mid bosses or bosses. So it's really the way to go. And of course, weaken armored targets as well. So things like brutes and anything else with armor, we definitely want to weaken that armor so that we can cut through it really quickly and wear them down. All right, so moving on to Shockwave here. In this particular build, I'm only going to use the first 3 ranks in Shockwave. If you want to update Shockwave, put more points into it, that's not a bad idea. However, I don't think it's really necessary, simply because Shockwave is really only useful to use through walls, and if there's mobs of enemies, and basically mobs of enemies who you want to be able to hit with the Shockwave, one past the other. So basically, if they're stacked with one enemy behind another, in a decent distance, and you want to be able to hit more than one enemy as you throw your Shockwave, that's really why you would want to use Shockwave. And once again, this will be easier for me to demonstrate once I get into the game. But most of the time you're really going to want to be using warp to do your detonations, simply because it's more powerful, easier to control, has better accuracy, and now I think that warp is really just a better power overall. Shockwave can be kind of questionable. It's a little bit buggy in the game, so that's why I only put 3 into it. So if you wanted to do more with it, I would definitely suggest going with impact radius over force and damage, and then I would probably also recommend going with reach over detonate, simply because, once again, you want Shockwave to go a pretty far distance in order for it to really have any use to you. And then also lifted Shockwave. Yeah, that's probably better than recharge speed in this case as well. Okay. So then for alliance training for rank 4, once again, this kit is going to be all about getting biotic explosions and powers over weapons. The weapons are really just going to be, on the side, and doing the power combos is really going to be the main offensive, strategy for this build. So I'm definitely going to go with damage to capacity here, and this is also what is helping to give me the plus 200 weight capacity, and I'm using that over weapon damage, as well as more power damage here, which will give me more power damage and force bonuses over headshots. I'm going to be using the N7 Hurricane as well as the Acolyte, so getting headshots, I mean, of course that's always important, but it's not something that is quite as important as with some other weapons with this particular kit. Alright, and then lastly here with fitness, the Human Adept is kind of squishy, so this is really just all about shields. So I don't have anything into melee for any of these. This is all about just extra health and shields. So health and shield bonuses, and then shield recharge and fitness expert. And the Human Adept does have a really good strong melee, which I'll demonstrate in the game, but still you're not going to use it enough really to make it worth it, in my opinion, to really put any extra points into the melee. Alright, so let's move on to the weapons here. As I mentioned, my power recharge speed is plus 200%, so that is the maximum recharge speed that you can have. So my cooldown is going to be really quick for all my powers, which is really great. And I suggest going with either a SMG and pistol combo, or a assault rifle and pistol combo for this particular kit. So I'm going to go with the N7 Hurricane, and this is really just to keep the weight down. So I'm going with the N7 Hurricane with the SMG recoil system, which I absolutely recommend you use. If you're going to use the N7 Hurricane without a recoil mod, the N7 Hurricane can be really wild. You'll try to shoot and it'll just go straight up into the air as you're shooting it. So you definitely need extra weapon stability to make the N7 Hurricane, really easy to aim. So definitely do that. And I also use the high caliber barrel as well. If you didn't want to use the high caliber barrel, you could also go with something like let's see, the high velocity barrel, which is not a bad idea, as well as the power magnifier, which is also a pretty good idea. Okay, and then for the Acolyte, so this ultralight materials I normally would not use, but once again, it's really important to be able to get the plus 200, in my opinion, with the recharge speed for your powers. So this is what is also contributing to that. If I were to take this off, you can see here it's now at 195. Is that really a big deal? No, you could absolutely play with 195. I just like to make sure I'm getting the fastest recharge speed possible, because this is all about powers with this particular kit. So that's why I'm going with that. And I also use the high caliber barrel here as well. And of course, like I said, you could also use something like the power magnifier if you wanted some more power damage. You could also use the this trauma system for more headshot damage. heavy barrel, anything else like that, depending on your playstyle. These really can be interchangeable depending on what you prefer. Okay, so moving on to equipment here. I definitely suggest going with warp rounds here, and that of course just gives you the biotic damage bonus. You know, since of course you're going to be using nothing but biotic powers, you know, with this kit. So this also helps with armor weakening. You know, when you come up against brutes or any other armored enemy, and warp rounds also do a really great job at just eating away at enemies. Not quite in the same way as incendiary ammo, but it does a very good job, and I definitely suggest using warp rounds. But if you don't have warp rounds, or you're also on a mixed team that has kits who have tech powers, you may want to go with incendiary instead. Those are really the only two I suggest using with this kit, but really primarily I suggest going with warp rounds. Okay, and now here, if you do not have an SMG rail amp, you could also go, of course, with a pistol rail amp if you're using a pistol as well. Of course, if you have an assault rifle instead of like an SMG, go with an assault rifle rail amp instead. And that's really the only ones I suggest going with. Of course, if you don't have any of them, go with, you know, a strength enhancer or targeting VI. Alright, and then for this other equipment here, I suggest going with the cyclonic modulator. Of course, I don't have a 3 or a 4 right now, so I'm going to just go with a 2. So definitely go with the highest one you have. And you could also go with something like an adrenaline mod if you wanted to have some more run speed. If you spec this kit differently and you need more power recharge speed, then you know, you may want to go with power efficiency. You could also of course go with power amp for more damage, and most importantly I would say, as the alternative to the cyclonic mod, if you do not have the recoil system mod for your Hurricane, if you're using a Hurricane, then this is what you're going to need to use in order to help stabilize that weapon. It's not going to do as good of a job even at level 3 as the recoil system mod on the actual gun. However, this is a decent alternative to help you compensate for the N7 Hurricane's really bad recoil. So that's definitely the alternative if you either don't have a cyclonic mod or, you know, you spec the kit differently. And lastly here, I personally use commando package usually, and this just gives me pistol damage and biotic damage. And since I'm already using here, I'm going to be using the SMG rail amp to give my SMG more damage. This is how I'm also contributing to my pistol damage, just to have an all around well-rounded kit for both of my weapons, and also giving me some more biotic damage. Of course, if you don't have a cyclonic mod and you want some more shield, you can go with the shield booster here. Some other ones, if you don't have any of these, you could also go with of course a pistol amp or expert package, which is right over here, and that's more SMG damage and power recharge speed. Okay, so that covers the build, so let's hop into a game.
Strategically sensitive location identified. We're dropping you into a hot zone. Secure the area.
Understood.
Okay, so for my keybinds in the top left there, I use middle mouse or 3 for singularity. For warp, I use X, and then for shockwave, I use F. So the first thing I just want to show you here is doing the basic combo that you're going to be that really is the bread and butter of this kit, and that's going to be singularity and warp. So as these husks come over here, all right, so I've got him in the singularity there. He's floating around, and that's actually just going to kill him. So let me strip this Marauder's shields, get him into a singularity, and then I'll throw warp on him there, and bam, that was a triple kill right there. So if you saw in my previous video with the Asari Justicar, this is very similar, of course, because these are both, adepts who are all about using biotic powers and doing biotic detonations. So, being able to throw Singularity out into the field and in strategic choke points, or of course, like right now. Well, that killed the that killed the husks right away. Hold on. So there you go. That's a pretty good choke point right there. It is absolutely essential. So just like the Asari Justicar, who has the biotic bubble, Singularity is a very similar power. So, as I mentioned earlier, you can throw Shockwave through walls, and there's that right there. I just got 2 or 3 kills on that. All right, so here's the warp and then Shockwave detonation. So like I said, really, you're going to be using your biotic detonations to be doing the major damage to the enemies, and then you're really just going to be using the Acolyte to strip shields and maybe kill off mooks, and you're going to be using the Hurricane just to keep enemies at bay, as well as just do constant damage to larger enemies like sub bosses and bosses. So of course you're just going to be chipping away at their armor and barriers and shields, in between doing your detonations. So something I also want to show you, if this Marauder stays alive, is the Human Adept's really good heavy melee. So let me just strip his shields. Okay, that didn't work out. I was hoping. Okay, there you go. That wasn't really a good demonstration of it. I'll do it again in this round. Just to show you how awesome the heavy melee is. It's totally worth it. It's really fun actually getting them into a Singularity and then hitting them with the heavy melee, because they just go flying across the field. Alright, I'll do it with this cannibal right here instead. There you go. Okay, so with this brute here, I just did a warp and then shockwave, and now I'm gonna hit him with Singularity and then warp. So like I said, what's really great about Shockwave is that you can use it through walls, so through walls and cover, and that's really how I use it primarily, is really just for that purpose. So you can see the Human Adept is really just a wrecking ball of biotic powers, and is a really fun kit to play. Alright, so I'll just finish up this third round and then we'll wrap it up.
A ship went down in this area carrying a canister of classified technology. Retrieve that object and bring it in. Explorers lost the object. Get back to the extraction. Object is lost. Find it. You got it. Now get back to the extraction. Object has been recovered. Nice job. We have an opportunity to snag some lost Reaper technology. We need that object. Object, nice job. Get back to the extraction zone.
Of course, you can see there I just did a biotic combo on her to get her barriers down, and now I'm just going to keep stripping away her armor with the Accolade and the Hurricane. And of course, once her barrier is down, I'm going to be able to do biotic detonations on her again. Okay.
Enemy is regrouping. Time to reload.
Alright, well that's going to wrap up this video. I hope you found it helpful, and in the next one we're going to cover the Vorcha Sentinel. So thanks a lot for watching, and I'll see you next time. capnbozzy out.